back to another new edition of Windows and Current Affairs, and today, of course, we take a flashback into last week's COP27 conference that was held in the Red Sea resort of Sharm el-Sheikh in collaboration with the UN community as an international community for the first time. Of course, it's a once-in-a-lifetime event and received a lot of applause from worldwide for the organization, for Egypt's participation, other Arab world countries and world countries in general, for international community, world leaders, and also the society, the civil society that had played a core role when it comes to standing to the challenges that would face the climate change. Of course, it was concluded, as we all know, but it was concluded with new projects, with new visions, with new aspirations for the future, for the upcoming COP that is supposed to be held soon in the near future, in a few years, inshallah. And today we're going to be talking about the results of that particular conference. We're going also to talk about how have we come after attending, civil society, in terms of civil society. How have we come? Where are we now after attending COP27? What do we have in our minds? What are we planning for? Are there any plans on the table? Are there any projects set yet or not yet? We're going to be talking about that and more. And we're very delighted to be having with us our guest, Ahmed Nour, and he's a representative of civil society at COP27 at one of the organizations. Before air, we were talking. Hello, Ahmed, how are you doing?
Alhamdulillah, thanks to you.
We were talking before air that you are a representative for communication. You are chief of communication for one of the civil societies, one of the main civil societies here in Egypt. That you participated heavily in COP27. Of course, as we all know, that in COP27 there were different organizations that attended, and there were different types of practices, different types of zones. So first of all, tell us about your participation as a society in COP27.
Thanks for you. Firstly, I want to speak about our first step before COP. I want to speak about COI17, the Conference of Youth. This conference was held before COP. Firstly, I want to thank everyone who was part of this conference. I want to thank my colleagues in the communication team, and I want to thank Mr. Abdelminam Imam, the president of Al Imam Foundation. The foundation was responsible of the communication in this conference. And I want to thank every organizations of the rest of organizations who was responsible of this conference. And I want to thank all the participants from all over the world. This conference is the United Nations Climate Change Conference of Youth, and this edition was the 17th edition. In usual, this conference is held in the same city of COP, which was Sharm el-Sheikh this year. And this conference is held in 3 days. There is 1 day break between COP and COI.
So it was held as a workshop too, as an introduction to the COP27, 3 days before.
Yeah.
Where was it held?
Many workshops was held in this conference. These workshops discussed everything about climate change, like mitigation, adaptation, and loss and damages. And by NGOs from all over the world and IGOs, especially the agencies of the United Nations. And also there is capacity building inside this conference. This capacity buildings, its role to improve the role of youth in COP27 and to make them able to discuss everything about climate change, every problems that will discussed in COP.
So you were setting a foundation for the different sessions that are supposed to tackle the same topics during COP27.
Yeah, there was many topics we talked in and discussed in COP. We were discussing the Delta region case As you know, delta is an estuary by the river and the sea. So the delta region is posed to many threats. Many threats is if the sea water level raising about 1 meter, all the delta will sink. So we worked on projects wanted to save the delta region and to rescue this region in the COP. We held a session about how to avoid the sinking of the delta.
As an awareness plan or to discuss and find the ways out?
Yeah, to discuss and to find a way out. This session attended to it many of the parliamentary members of our Egyptian parliament and many people from the civil society. And the parliamentary members decided to continue this discussion inside the parliament. It's a very good step to us to work on this after COP.
Right. So you said you were different societies attending or collaborating. There were partnerships in that particular COI conference that was held prior to the COP?
Yeah, there is many partnerships between many civil society organizations, like the 5 organizations from Egypt, You Think Green, EnviroX, and the other organizations.
So 5 organizations from Egypt. Do you have other organizations that participated from outside Egypt?
Yeah, there is many organizations. Every organization that interested in the climate change cases were attending in this conference.
Prior to air, you said that COI was also held. It is usually held before COP, any COP conference. It was held back then in Glasgow. In the former COP 26, and it has a similar mission. What is the difference between this year's mission and the one in Glasgow?
This year is a different COI and COP. This year, this COP is the COP for implementation, and also COI. I think it was a COI for implementation. There was a different soul in this conference. Everyone has the will to make something for the climate change cases. So I think it was different from any other COI because of this reason.
So you were implementing maybe recommendations that came back then in COP26, or you're setting it on the table of negotiations to be held or to be put for negotiations during COP27, right?
Yeah, I think the other COPs, everyone thought that this COP is very different. Now we discussed the points to implement it. Before, no. But now we are negotiate to how to implement the Paris Agreement, how to fund the losses and damages for the developing countries.
We need to stress over loss and damage agreement also. And policies, and to elaborate over it more to the viewers, because it's very important, and this might be one of the major solutions that came in COP27. However, there was contradiction about that particular solution, because people said, observers suggested other ways out to compensate the third world from all the dangers and results of the economic greed of the power countries. But we're going to take it on later. We need also to locate or stress over the missions of COI. What else besides laying a foundation for an upcoming COP every time a COP is held?
At the end of this COI and every COI, there is a policy paper. This policy paper comes from the negotiation between the youth. So this policy paper is the conclusion of this conference. This policy paper went to the presidency delegation in the COP to make it in mind when they negotiate, because as you know, youth and the children is the main category that at risk from the climate change effects and impacts. So This policy paper go to the presidency delegation in the COP to make it in mind.
So you came up with recommendations, and you were empowering or enforcing those recommendations to be taken till the last day of COP27.
Yeah.
So that was COI, 3 days before the COP27. Your participation in COP27, you must be coming to COP27 more than anyone else with a background, with different workshops already in your mind, because you were you held workshops prior to the COP27. I mean, people, you were well prepared as a society, right?
Yeah, there was a goal. We were seeking to it. Our goal, to deliver the case of a delta to the ears of the people inside COP. So we worked on this case. We held our session titled "How to Avoid the Sinking of a Delta," and we launched the Delta Forum, the Delta First Forum.
It's an initiative?
No, it's like a conference. It will hold in El Gharbia Governator in Tanta City the next year.
The name is Delta?
The first Delta Forum.
Forum? Delta Forum.
Yeah.
So it's a whole definition of the problem.
Yeah.
You mean it's a whole definition of the problem?
It's a conference or forum to discuss.
Forum, okay.
Forum,
yeah. Okay. So you're holding it later on. You will be holding it. When are you holding it?
Next year, inshallah, maybe January or February.
Okay.
We will discuss everything about the Delta with the civil society from Egypt and from another countries. So
on top of your concerns is the Delta Forum.
Yeah.
And the Delta problem, or how to seek solutions, sort out the problems of Delta, right?
Yeah.
Do you like to talk about it?
Delta, we want to rescue Delta. We want to save this region. It is a big basket food to millions of people.
Of course.
If this region sink, we will starve. Every one of these millions will starve. There will be a big starvation. The people will suffering from this from this case. So we want to save it, and we want to work on projects can helping to make this region safe.
That's very good. Who is participating, and did you seek the assistance of some experts maybe? I mean, how did you prepare for it? Where did you gather the information? Did you have some field operation, surveillance over all the Delta prior to that session? I mean, how did it work?
We invite experts from Egypt here, from Cairo University, from the Science College, and we invite many climate change activists here in Egypt to work on this in this case and to discuss it in the Delta Forum.
Right. We're going to go to a short break, and we'll come to continue our chat with Ahmed Nour, so stay with us. Welcome back, and we're still talking about COP27 and the participation of civil society. We have with us Ahmed Nour. He's a representative of civil society. I participated heavily in COI conference prior 3 days to COP27, and also in COP27. Welcome back, Ahmed. And you were talking about your different projects. Actually, I was really impressed. I mean, your projects are very impressive. The projects that you are holding in your society. The STA, you said, and also the Delta Forum. You're working over to bring Delta Forum to life, inshallah, next year. Before we talk about Delta Forum, let's talk about the SDA.
SDA is an alliance to everyone who care about Delta region and all over the world. There is many Delta in the world, so we want to make an alliance to collect them and collect all the interests and all the ideas about how to avoid the sink of a Delta. So this alliance, we will work on it to the next COPs in Dubai. in Dubai and after Dubai. So this alliance will be a big project. It's for the long term, to 7 years or maybe 10 years.
What exactly its targets are?
Let's target all the civil societies among the world who cares about their delta in their country, and the youth, and all the people who cares of a delta, people and organizations.
So it's not your a specific idea that you came up with in your society, but it's an initiative, let us call it, or it's a project?
It will be a project, and we want to make it like a separated organization.
So it's just a project, and you're going to work on it to get a license to take it as an organization. Are you the founders of?
No, it's a project come from Al Imam Foundation.
From your, so you are the founder.
Yeah.
You are the founder of this foundation. It's a very good idea, by the way. So it stands for Saving Delta, or Sustainable Development of Delta.
Sustainability Delta Alliance.
Sustainability Delta Alliance.
Yeah.
That's a very good idea and a very good project, but it needs a lot of work and a lot of planning. Because when we talk about delta, like you said, there are many deltas worldwide. So you're going to attract many organizations and many societies to your cause. Your cause is universal. It is not concerning Egypt only, but it's concerning deltas worldwide who are prone to the hazards of climate change. But let us talk about the delta in Egypt. How have you reached so far when it comes to the delta of Egypt, since you are the founders of this project? What exactly have you done until now?
Well, it's now an idea on the papers. So we want to work to make it alive. We want to make connections and partnerships with another organizations here in Egypt and Africa and Europe, to make it alive, and to get fund to finance every activities we'll get in this alliance.
That's very good. So what, besides the SDA, what else are you aiming at for the coming COP?
There is a ACE project. We work on this project to empowerment the civil society. So it's one of our projects that we work on it to the next COPs also. And there is another project will be held in Egypt from our foundation, but there is no details to right now.
How did you participate in COP? What was the form of your participation? How was it like?
It was like observing. We were observing in the negotiations and report everything about the negotiation. So we were observing the negotiations and take care about everything. We want to get fund to the loss and damages and how to adapt with the climate change effects and impacts. And how to mitigate the carbon emissions. It's a very danger for the people, and it make many emissions from the carbon from the developing countries and developed countries like China. So we want to get funded to mitigate and adapt with this.
So talking about the lost and you're talking about the lost and?
Loss and damage.
The loss and damage. So the loss and damage is one of the very important projects that were taken by international community, that is the UN, to be able to compensate, right, the developing countries against the damage that was inflicted upon it from the power countries and its industries. But that actually, in spite of the fact that it was a good step by the UN or by the people who came up with the idea, on the other hand, there were lots of contradictions and objection about that particular idea, because they said instead of keep compensating countries, do not inflict damage from the start. If you have some industry, do it in your own country, or you have to do it according to environmental regulations.
Yeah.
I mean, respect the environment, affect economic, development, affect industrial development, but do not do this on the expense of other countries. How do you read that?
The last COPs discussed how to fund the mitigation and adaptation, and how to adapt with the carbon emissions. And the fund go to projects to mitigate the carbon emissions. This COP is different. We get finally the parties reached an agreement about to make a fund to finance the loss and damages. Maybe the next COPs will determine how to get this fund for developing countries, and which countries will take this fund. But it's a very important thing to this COP. What makes this conference successful is this agreement, in my thought.
What agreement?
This agreement to make a fund to the finance.
So it's the loss and damage.
Yeah.
But do you think it's fair enough for the countries in Africa that are the mostly prone to the damage because of the other countries' industries that are done in Africa and done in Asia, and sometimes done in the Middle East, maybe in some industries, and the carbon emission that is affected out of these industries? Do you think it's fair enough? It's enough for them to be compensated, and that's it?
It's not enough, but we want to make a political will for the leaders, for the United States leaders and the China leaders to fund the projects in these countries, and to make it enough for those people. These people starve from the shortage of the food, and there is no water. There is many droughts in these countries, and in Iraq. So we want to make a political will in this COP and the next COPs.
Right. In this COP and the next COPs, inshallah, of course. But also, what about, you attended thoroughly most of the sessions, and you are an observer also, and you were writing reports, and you shared heavily in this COP27. But haven't you crossed, or stumbled into sessions like regulations or ratifying laws, imposing sanctions over the violation of the environment, over pollution, over using toxic waste, over using nuclear arms or nuclear waste and throw it in the oceans or in the rivers, disturbing the ecosystem by eradicating the endangered species of animals, like in China, the deforestation. There are many violations and many environmental crimes that needs to be considered and needs heavily and quickly to implicate rules and enforce rules and sanctions over those countries. So tell us about that. Haven't you stepped into something like this?
Firstly, we want to thank our clever negotiators in Egypt. We have a very clever negotiators, make all these points in mind. And we have, in this conference, there was a very good presidency delegation. Minister Sameh Shukri,
all the time.
Ambassador Ayman, Ambassador Wael Abul Magd, Ambassador Amr Assam, they did a great job in this conference.
That's true.
And we want to refer to the political will of our Mr. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi to make this conference successful and to prove that Egypt have the ability to make such a great conferences and big events. And all of these points that you referred to it, we worked on it. We worked on it for the workshops and sessions in this conference, and all the negotiations referred to this point and make it in mind and worked on it to make a final agreement of this all points.
So until this, even after the COP27 is over, there was no talk about or negotiations about imposing any sanctions or imposing any laws. It was all about compensations.
No, after COPs, every climate activist among the world take a risk to work on new projects. There is a little bit projects that continue to the next COPs. So this time everyone work on new project. As I told to you, we work on new project like SDA. We launched a Delta Forum, which will be held the next year, inshallah.
Inshallah. So you have crossed into other projects and other communities. You have met the Latin community, you have met the Spanish one, you have met the American. Talk to us about your experience, I mean, as a representative for civil society. What's your intake of the community and what was the best projects that you came about or crossed through COP27?
There were many good projects to this COP, like SAWA, it's Sustainability Ocean Alliance. It was a very good project. They want to save the ocean, not the Atlantic only, but the Pacific also. And there was a project on gender equality. There were many projects from the Latin America, especially. There are very good projects and very good activists who work hardly in these cases. So everyone was active in this COP. Everyone was working on their projects to make it under the light in this COP.
So you said that there were, projects about gender equality. What do you think are the most important causes to be considered foremost when it comes to challenges of the climate change, besides, of course, the delta damage? What else? Where do you think you should, if you are setting a map for sorting out the climate change problems, what type of causes that you're going to set over this map?
Maybe the impact is that will be on the youth and the children and also the women. There will be a very dangerous impact on them. So we want to rescue them and make them awareness to these impacts and effects. So we want to work on this point from now and for the future. We want to save our youth and children. They will suffer from these impacts in the future if we will not take any steps to save them from now.
Of course. Do you have you studied some means to be able to empower and enforce also women and children in your organization or your society?
Maybe we will work on some projects like this, and also SDA there will be a branch to the youth and the children in this alliance.
Because if we're talking about the Delta Forum, one of the main sectors for the development of Delta is women.
Yeah.
Women are the foundation of any society and prosperity and agriculture also when we talk about those domains. So a great deal of sustainability is going to be directed towards women.
Already we work on projects that work to empower the women in the Delta region and in the Gharbia Governator. We work in many projects to empower women and the children in this region, and we will take it in mind in our forum of the Delta.
What do you think are the most challenges that face causes of the environment?
Challenges?
Yes, what are the main challenges to climate change?
I think the main challenges now is the people, the political will of
Human
the-
beings.
Yeah,
Mm.
it's the main challenge. If we could change this mind, how to think about the climate, how to think about the environment, it will be a very good step to us.
So in other words, you are calling for an awareness, a huge awareness campaign or project. Because if you need to change minds or you need to reset the mindset, then you have to use the awareness war.
We saw USA from maybe 4 years withdraw from Paris Agreement. Their last president said that there is no climate change. So we want to work on the mind. We want to work about the awareness of the people, not only in Africa or Asia, but mainly in Europe and North America.
That's true. Do you think that the problems or the causes in the Arab world is different in its nature from the, from Europe or the United States?
Yeah, there is a big difference from here and Europe. Here we want to work more on climate change projects and
Pollution, you mean?
yeah, and we want to be awareness about the climate change effects. We here there is no emissions in the Arab region, but in Europe there are be. But we want to be awareness for calling to our rights, to get fund for projects to fund the mitigation and adaptation.
Right. Ahmed, Nour, you are the representative of civil society at COP27. Would like to thank you so much and wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming to Windows on Current Affairs. And I guess this would bring us to the end of this edition of Windows on Current Affairs. Many thanks to all of you. Until we see you again next week, that's a goodbye.